Today we're talking about Sentimental Value, a 2025 Norwegian comedy drama film directed by Joachim Trier, who co-wrote it with Eskil Vogt. It stars Stellan Skarsgård, Renate Reins, Inga Lilius, and Elle Fanning. It basically follows a fractured relationship between an acclaimed director and his two estranged daughters, which becomes even more complicated when he decides to make a personal film about their family history. So the way the story goes is in the beginning, you see that their mom has passed away. The sisters are then forced to confront their distant dad, Gustav. They are Norwegian and they're raised in Norway, and their dad is Swedish. He was once famous, but he's now a mostly forgotten film director who mostly abandoned the family when they were still young. Nora is a very driven stage actress. She has prioritized her career over everything else. Her life is a bit dysfunctional. She has an affair with a married man, things like that. While Agnes has a more traditional life with a husband, child, a corporate job. Gustav, their dad, is convinced that this autobiographical screenplay he's written will be his ticket back to fame. He wants to tell the story of his mother, who took her own life in the family home in Norway, a place that is still partially owned by him due to the trauma she endured from Nazi torture during the war. He offers the lead role to Nora, who is the daughter that is an actress, but she firmly refuses. So instead, he casts this Hollywood actress, Rachel, that is played by Elle Fanning, who he met during a retrospective of his films. So you watch them prepare for the film, you watch the sisters kind of watching the production of the film cynically somewhat. Then as you also watch it, you also find out more about why they're estranged, the family trauma, how he wasn't there for them as kids, how he continues to try and kind of manipulate them. He tries to get Agnes, his son, to be in the film, as she's kind of resistant to it. By the time you get to the end, Rachel, the American actress he cast, who has tried different things. She's dyed her hair to look like his daughter. She's trying to do a Norwegian accent. She tells him that she doesn't feel right doing the role and she wants to drop out. At the very end of the film, Nora, who has been resistant to this film this whole time, finally kind of reads parts of the script, and she and Agnes kind of process it. They realize it's kind of actually about her. And the last scene you see of the film is what looks like you're watching her attempt suicide and then be discovered by her sister's son. And then you hear cuts and then you realize that no, it is a scene from the film, which she ultimately finally agreed to make with her dad. And he smiles at her, and that's the end of the scene. Oh, I also should mention that he had a bit of a health scare towards the end of the film as well. D, is Sentimental Value good, bad, or mid?
I had such a crazy journey with this film. I actually fell asleep on the first watch when I was at a press screening. I bear in mind, I can't remember the last time I've fallen asleep for
You're
that
not like
long
me.
at, at a cinema screening, but I had seen so much commentary around it, and the movie had convinced me that something about the family dynamic would be, I would resonate with it. So I decided to give it a second chance, and I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I did. And so overall, I would say that this movie is good leaning on mid because of an unforgivable first half. But the ending completely landed for me and it actually brought me to tears.
D, we are exactly in sync, which is a good and bad thing. It's always very funny when we disagree with each other because we be tussling, but it's always really interesting when we're exactly in agreement, because I always think about what journeys have we both been on in our
Mm,
lives that will lead us to have the exact same emotional reaction to something. Word for word, what you just said is my exact reaction to this film.
mm.
This film was dragging me along,
Dragging.
dragging. I was like, please stop this. And obviously, because it's not in English, I have to really try and focus on it.
Yeah.
I can't watch it casually, but I was struggling to care. It's a long film, it's 160 minutes almost. Like you, the first time I tried to watch it, because I was watching it as a screener, I ran out of time. I had to go and request for more time to try and watch this film again.
Mhm.
And I was like, why are people gagging over this film? This film, I believe, it won the Grand Prix prize at Cannes. I was like, why are they gagging over this film? It's dragging. Like, the performances are good, the cinematography is okay, but it's dragging. And then from when we get to the point where Rachel, Elle Fanning's character, comes to meet Gustav to tell him she can't play the role, till the ending, and that final scene destroyed me. When I realized what they did in that final scene, I literally like stood up and gave like, and I was clapping. Like
Wow.
I and it also moved me to tears. I thought that was such a beautiful ending that I didn't see coming. I don't know how I didn't clock it. They literally tell you after she reads the script that, oh, how did he know about my suicide attempt? So I know he knows, and I know that the script has evolved to being a story about her. But when I was watching that final scene, I thought we were watching her reattempt suicide, because you could tell across the course of the movie she wasn't in the best state of mind. She was still struggling with a lot of things. And I was thinking, okay, if this is how this movie ends, I don't think that's that profound. But what they did instead, where it's actually kind of an interestingly almost happy ending, where they decide to process their grief together, and the switcheroo they thought, I thought it was actually kind of beautiful. That ending makes it a very, very good film, and I don't say that
Okay.
easily.
So here's the thing though. So I think what's interesting is we have the same overall opinion, but the ending I didn't care for actually. That final scene I didn't care for it.
Overall, I liked it. It's very Scandinavian, the whole film. I'm not gonna lie. It's not a movie I will easily rewatch, but I think I will rewatch it actually. I think
Yeah.
it is a film to watch a second time. And I understand why it's called Sentimental Value.
Yeah.
And I do understand why they responded well to it. I can. This film has one of the highest, longest standing ovations of all time. It had
Yes.
19 minutes. Watching the structure of the film, I understand why it'll be like that. Because when I first heard that, I was like, over what? An almost 3 hour movie of them just being miserable in Norway. But then, because of the way the ending kind of like wakes you up, I understand why people would just stand up and be like, oh, bravo, bravo. Like, I
I
get
think
it.
I think there's something else going on. So basically, when I was deciding about whether I wanted to rewatch it or not, I was ready to discount this movie and say this is once again film critics getting a hard on because there's a film within a film.
I agree. I was also thinking, okay, this is like the La La Land thing again.
Yeah,
Hollywood is obsessed with films about Hollywood.
but I'm so glad I gave it another chance. So let's talk about the themes. So the first theme is depression. What did you think about the depiction of depression in the movie?
I can't lie, while watching it, I was kind of bored by the depiction of depression because I didn't find it to be
Yeah,
unique or new in any way.
yep,
And I wasn't really properly feeling like I was invited to understand what causes this particular character's depression. So I
exactly.
wasn't that moved by it. Towards the end, where they basically revealed that she had to become a parent to her sister, and in some way she kind of sacrificed her own stability for the sake of her sister. I was like, okay, I'm not mad at that. I wasn't mad at that, but I wish
Mm,
we had gotten to the point a
much
bit more
earlier.
sharply. Yeah,
One of the big issues I had with this movie is that scene starts at 1 hour 50 minutes. Until that point, this movie was telling me over and over again that this woman is depressed and her life's a disaster. And I'm like, hold on, her life's a disaster based on your understandings of what a woman's life should look like. Because I don't believe that a woman's life is successful just because she's married or just because she has children. I just wasn't buying the depression thing. Because I'm like, okay, fair enough. You're having an affair. Okay, so are so many people. I'm not trying to defend it, but a lot of people are having affairs. Okay, your career's kind of messed up because you've got anxiety. Not trying to downplay that, I understand. The movie spent almost 2 hours trying to convince me that this woman is depressed because her life's a disaster. And I just wasn't buying it because I don't buy into the idea that a woman is successful just because she's married and she has children. I know plenty married women, plenty women with children whose lives are messed up because they are depressed actually, because there's so many reasons why you can be depressed in that situation. So the movie, I didn't connect with it for literally 2 hours. So it was a horrible watch for me to begin with. I think another thing worth pointing out here is the theme of fatherhood. Now, one of the reasons why I didn't connect with the movie for 2 hours is because I didn't care for a single thing that was relating to that father. And that's the reason why the ending scene didn't work for me. And the reason why is because this movie doesn't want us to like the father, Loki. Yeah. Unless you're someone who subscribes to a very like misogynistic, egotistical man's sense of humor, you're not gonna like this guy, right? And that's fine. I don't have to like him. But what I didn't like is he gets everything he wants in this movie. And no one really sits him down to tell him, like, do you understand that you're ruining so many people's lives around you? Everybody in this movie is reacting to this man. The trauma in this movie is a response to this man. At no point does he get confronted properly. At no point does he not get his way. Literally, as you mentioned, he wanted Agnes's son to be in his movie, and he gets his own way in the end, even though she didn't want to do that, right? So I'm not pretending that these men don't exist, and I'm also not pretending that there aren't men that go around ruining women's lives and get away with it. I know for a fact it happens. That's the reason why the world's so messed up. But I didn't care for it in the movie, and I especially didn't care for it when they want me to cry at this ending scene where the man has gotten his way again. It didn't work for me.
It's so interesting. I had the exact opposite reaction. So, on the subject of fatherhood, this movie parallels My Father's Shadow for me, which is one of my favorite films of the year. In that, it's also a story about like an estranged father with his two children who are close, and like one of them has essentially had to become a parental figure to the other because of his absence. And My Father's Shadow has a very sad ending. But to get to the point of sadness, the characters do get to bond and understand their dad a lot more. This film has kind of like a happy ending in that like he gets his happy ending. But I don't feel like we really get to really spend proper time to see these characters understand each other, like parent to child, or importantly, as you said, for him to be truly held accountable by them. Even
Mm-hmm.
though, I mean, I do feel like they tell him to his face multiple times how he's failed them. It's just that his character doesn't care, right?
After they
So,
do what he wants them to do again.
but ultimately, and this is the thing about film, and this is the thing about art, and how and why I don't hide how subjective I am as a film watcher. Even despite all of that, it just works for me. I can't explain it to you. It just works. The combination of the acting performances, the sound, the music, the lighting. It was so emotionally stirring. The last 20 minutes of the film are some of my favorite last 20 minutes of film I've watched this year. From the moment where we realize that Nora has been raising Agnes to the point Rachel decides the film is not right, and Nora does it, and she's once again kind of being self sacrificial in this film, to the actual exchange of glances between father and daughter. It all just I can't explain to you why, because I agree with you morally on what you're saying. But I just thought it was such a beautiful moment of film.
There's no
And
development from any of them. They start one way and they end the same way. They don't even really go on a journey. Look, if anything, maybe Nora goes on a bit of a journey where she tries to be selfish. Well, quote unquote selfish. I don't think she was being selfish actually, but
no,
you know what I mean.
yes, I do. I think what also makes a huge difference for me is I am obsessed with the Stellan Skarsgård performance. Even when I didn't care about this movie in the first 90 minutes or so, the only thing that was holding my attention was his performance. So I generally tend to be a stan of him as an actor. Like I love him in the Dune movies and stuff like that. So I am biased. I just think he's a great actor. And this year I felt like a lot of leading male performances have been made. And I just thought he was very hypnotizing on screen the entire time he was there,
Mm-hmm.
including those last couple of moments. So even though his character is absolutely an asshole, I believed him completely, and I felt sucked into the movie by his character. I don't know any of these Norwegian, Swedish people, but he pulled me into the universe of the film every time it was on screen. So at the end, when he gets what he wants, basically, weirdly enough, I match his energy and I feel satisfied that I have gotten what I want. Don't ask me to
Wow.
explain it. That is the beauty of film. This is how sometimes I react to film. And it works so well for him. I am actively rooting for him now for award season to sweep. Like, I was so impressed. But I understand all of your criticisms of that character and how that story resolves itself.
This is controversial. His performance wasn't bad, but it didn't blow me away.
How
I
did it
can't like because I'm actually really curious because everyone's saying, "Oh my god, it's the performance of the year," and I'm like, why? Like, and to be fair, I'm not criticizing his acting ability. What I'm also criticizing is the flatness of the character. So for me, if a performance blows me away, it's gonna be because either there's a flat character, maybe that's evil, for example, and it's executed to such a high standard, or there's enough range demonstrated to where I can say, you know what, for you to be able to execute all of that range and convince me of all of those storylines, you must be a good actor. I don't think any applied here for me.
For me, there was a lot of subtlety to his performance. Even things like in the middle of the film, when you're watching him doing the table reads and stuff like that with
Mm,
Rachel, and I think there's a character called Ingrid, the actors that have been cast, even though you can tell he's not satisfied exactly with who he's cast. There's just little choices that Stellan would make with how he was watching them read their lines, as in universe, I can't put it in words, but I just was so captivated by the little things he would do with his face as he was watching them. Like, I believed I was watching a man who was watching an American actress playing his daughter, thinking she's playing his mother, even though he really wants his daughter to be the person playing the role. Like, I just believed it. I felt the character so clearly. Even the scenes where he would meet up with his former collaborators or his brother or whoever that guy was and talk about where he currently sits in the film industry. Maybe it was Stellan inserting some of his own personal experience as an actual, member of the industry in the real world. But there was something about it that I just thought it was very technically
Mm.
nuanced and well done.
As I mentioned, the storyline with the father didn't work for me. The storyline that sat on my tear ducts was the storyline with the sisters. And this storyline had me crying, literally, not crying, but maybe like teary for 20 minutes. And the reason why, and I can feel myself getting teary again, is the analysis of how birth order is so important, more than society realizes. And the reason why I recognize it is because I can resonate with both of the sisters in the sense that I'm the youngest sister in terms of like my nuclear family. And I was in that position of Agnes. I'm acutely aware that if it wasn't for my older sisters, I wouldn't be able to live the lifestyle I live now. And look, I'm going again. That's crazy.
Aww.
Yes, made me get teary again. And so when we have that scene at 1 hour 50 where Agnes and Nora are having that heart to heart, it completely ruined me. And as you can see, I've still been thinking about it days after watching it. And I was so moved by it that after watching, I said to my sister, look, I've just seen this film and it so accurately portrays some of the dynamics we've had growing up. And I would love if you would come to watch it with me and discuss it after. And she's agreed that she will come and do it. So I'm really excited about that.
Oh, no, you making yourself watch these 3 hours again.
I know, which is crazy, right? After falling asleep for 30 minutes in my first screening. The other part I want to highlight here is that in some ways I can also relate to Nora. I have young children in my family who, when they came around, maybe the mums were not so supported, right? So what that means is that as a young child, I had to step up. And so I know what that looks like to be parentified as well. And so when you can relate to both sides of that story, like I was literally completely obliterated by that scene. And to just see that depicted so well by a family that I should have nothing in common with ultimately, because there are a bunch of Norwegian people, living in Scandinavia, very different lifestyle to me and my Caribbean family. But it worked so, so well for me. And I'm so glad that I stuck through it to get to that point.
I was thinking about you as I was watching when I got to the final part of the film, but I didn't know how deep it would hit you. So yeah, it's always very beautiful to see when film can really just get
Yeah.
at you in that way, right? Yeah, I think what it does with the sister scene is really important. Again, why I was so frustrated it took us so long to get to the point. And I don't believe that the build up is that justified. I don't believe you can't
No.
build up to the exact same sentiment in 55 minutes as opposed to 100 and whatever it was minutes. I personally I like every single element of his family treatment. I don't really have any notes to be honest, except for like it's too bloody long. I want
Yeah.
to talk very briefly about how it addresses celebrity culture. Because at first I was like, why did Netflix sponsor this movie? Why am I seeing Netflix splashed?
But like the product placement was crazy.
Yeah, I found it very strange. But the film is not distributed by Netflix as far as I know. So I like this looks a bit too explicit. But anyway, I was wondering about that and I was like wondering what's the point of this Elle Fanning character?
Mm.
And okay, she's just some like, Ariana Grande, Jennifer Lawrence, little starlets. Okay, and so what? And I now understand and I've seen some people write about the film that her character, just like the many other women in this character, and I do appreciate how different women are depicted in this film, she's there to also almost kind of subvert your expectations and subvert the things that Gustav is projecting early on when he's making all these comments about actors and
Mm.
actresses. And basically, like, I feel like it's even gendered his criticism that they're vain and they're folly and they have no care about their craft or whatever. And her character really doing her best to try and embody this character that her director is basically lying to her by not making it
Yeah.
honest to her who she's actually supposed to be playing.
Yeah.
And she figures it out by herself with her own research and her own empathy. And she does everything she can do, but then she ultimately realizes that this is not right for her. And she says it to him. I actually thought there was something really simply beautiful about that. Like, I thought the
Mm.
way they humanized that kind of airhead Hollywood starlet, there was something actually quite sweet and beautiful about it. And once again, I just appreciate showing different types of female characters from the very austere to the very soft, and
Yeah.
showing how all of them have their own ways of sacrificing and their own ways of approaching things with care. So I just wanted to know that, like, I really liked that bit of writing. I didn't think that's where it was going, and when it arrived, I was like, oh, that's kind of different. I like that.
Okay, so ratings. What would you give Sentimental Value out of 10?
If you asked me this question for 80% of this movie, I would have said maybe a 4 out of 10, that this film was boring me out of my mind. Now I'll give it a strong 7. I think that ending is such a master stroke that it really elevates the film for me.
Yeah, so as you can tell, this movie really moved me emotionally. Um, I really hated the first 1 hour 50 minutes though. When I did the rewatch for the first 50 minutes or so, I was like, so they've wasted my time again. Then I was right this whole time that this is just a film in a film movie, and that's the reason why the film bros love it. But as I mentioned, that scene between the sisters, it was such a strong redemption. So for me, I would give it a 7.5 out of 10. It's one of my favorites from the film festival now.
Same, same. I think also, like, across the board, there's no bad acting in this film. So I
Yeah.
also just want to note that. And I think it's a well directed film in that I feel like the filmmaker, he had an intention with what he was trying to do, and for the most part he got it out of his actors, even though it dragged
Hmm.
on too long.
Hmm.
The film is written by a man and a woman, and I can feel a woman's touch in the
Yeah.
writing.
Hmm.
So I also wanted to note that.
So I really enjoyed the soundtrack for this movie. It's actually something I've started listening to on Spotify.
Oh my
And
god, you're a
because,
stan.
yeah, well, I wouldn't go that far. I noticed that the soundtrack's very black, and that's probably why I actually loved a lot of the music throughout the film. I don't know why that was the choice, but it was interesting. And then the final thing I have to say is that I'm very jealous of the Swedish and the Norwegian speakers, because I know this movie was doing some cool things with the language, but I just don't have the skills to pick up on it. So I would love to see someone who speaks the languages explain what was really going on there when they were switching between languages, because I do know a tiny bit of Norwegian, like literally how to say hello in Norwegian and Swedish because of travel and stuff. And I noticed that they were switching between the languages, but I couldn't figure out the logic behind why that was happening. I would love to know more.
Language is such a good point, because again, as I was watching this film, I kept on thinking about how elements of it reminded me of My Father's Shadow. And there's so much of My Father's Shadow that hits me extra hard, because I understand the nuances of everything they're saying when they're speaking Yoruba and Nigerian pidgin English, that I think is lost in the subtitles. And I kept on thinking, I know things are going over my head in the subtitles, in how the father and the daughters
Yeah,
are communicating to each other, especially because, um right, if I'm not mistaken, Stellan Skarsgård, who is Swedish, he's speaking Norwegian in the movie, but his character is supposed to be like a Swedish Norwegian man or something
yeah.
like that. So, like, and there's commentary about, like, even the accents that they're using and the regionality and the switch. So I know the language switching and the accent use is very important, but unfortunately I can't catch that. And I know there are people that are going to appreciate this movie at a higher level of depth than we can. I agree.
There's does sentimental value pass the Bechdel test?
With flying colors, I'm not even sure if it passes
The
the
reverse.
equivalent of a Bechdel test for men, but it
Yeah.
definitely passes for women. We have many, 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 many scenes of Nora and Agnes speaking about their childhood, their life experiences, motherhood, their careers, supporting each other, the times when they weren't able to support each other. I believe we also see Elle Fanning's character, Rachel, interacting directly with Ingrid, who is another actress that is in the film, and they're talking about, like, getting accents right and stuff like that. So yeah, film passes the Bechdel test with flying colors. So while Stellan Skarsgård is my favorite performer in this film, and I genuinely am actively rooting for him this award season, and I think for his performance, I really want to highlight Inga Lilias, who plays Agnes,
Mhm.
who is the more quote unquote responsible sister, the more traditional sister. I found her performance kind of very heartbreaking sometimes. And for that, beginning of that emotional whammy of an ending arc to really work, of course, Renee Rains has to do a great job as Nora to understand that, oh, she has been parentified. But I think kind of the mixture of the guilt and the care and the love and the regrets that Inga has to present as Agnes when you're finding out those scenes are so important, and she does it so beautifully. Like, that was part of the reason I became so overwhelmed with emotion. So I think she's actually probably my favorite female performance in the film. I
Mm.
also thought Elle Fanning as Rachel, I actually really enjoyed what she did in the film towards the end as well. Generally, I'm a big fan of all the acting in this movie.